Welcome to Fear Lit, where the shadows of history reveal their darkest secrets. Tonight, we delve into the mysterious tale of a girl in 1930s Russia who defied the laws of nature and the price her family paid for it. The bitter winds of January howled across the remote village of Kreming, nestled between dense pine forests and the frozen banks of the Volga River. Here, in a modest wooden house on the outskirts of the settlement, lived the Vulova family, a lumber worker with calloused hands and a stoic demeanor. His wife Anna, known for her remedies brewed from herbs gathered in the surrounding woods, and their daughter Katya. In 1930, Russia was transforming. The revolution had given way to Stalin's first 5-year plan. Collectivization was being enforced across the countryside, traditional ways of life dismantled in favor of industrial progress. But in isolated Kremink, change came slowly. The villagers clung to old beliefs, whispering about forest spirits and household demons when government officials weren't listening. Katcha Vulova was born on the winter solstice of 1920, during a night when the aurora borealis painted the sky in shimmering curtains of green and violet. An exceedingly rare occurrence this far south. The midwife who delivered her, old Baba, made the sign of the cross when she first held the infant, noting that the child had not cried upon entering the world, but had instead stared intently at the dancing lights visible through the window. A strange one, this child Baba Yora had whispered to Anna, born between worlds, on the longest night. Watch her carefully. For the first few years, Katcha seemed like any other child, curious, playful, quick to laugh, with her wide gray eyes and hair the color of wheat fields in autumn. She was beautiful in a way that drew attention, even in a village where beauty was common. By the age of 5, she could recite folk tales with perfect recall after hearing them just once, a talent that delighted the elderly villagers who would invite her to their homes for tea and stories. But as her 7th birthday approached, Mikhail and Anna began to notice something unusual. While other children grew taller, lost baby teeth, and developed in predictable ways, Katcha remained unchanged. Her face retained its perfect roundness, her milk teeth firmly in place, her height static. At first, they attributed this to a growth delay. Perhaps she would experience a sudden spurt later, catching up with her peers in one dramatic transformation by her 8th birthday. When no changes had occurred, Anna took Katya to the district doctor in the larger town of Volgrad, a full day's journey by horse-drawn cart. Sometimes children develop at different rates, the doctor said after examining the girl. Perhaps she is simply small for her age. Nutrition in the villages has been poor since the revolution. Give her more milk, more eggs, if you can find them. Mikhail traded his woodworking skills for extra food, ensuring Katya had the best nutrition possible in those difficult times. Still, she remained the same, eternally 7 years old in appearance. By 1930, when our story truly begins, Katya had reached the chronological age of 10, though she appeared 3 years younger. The discrepancy was becoming impossible to ignore, especially in a small village where everyone knew each other's business. Children who had once been her playmates now towered over her. They had begun to treat her differently, some with curiosity, others with the casual cruelty children often display toward those who differ from the norm. One afternoon in early February, Mikhail returned from the lumber camp to find Anna sitting alone at their kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cooling cup of tea, eyes fixed on nothing. "Where is Katya?" he asked, hanging his heavy coat on the hook by the door. "With Baba Yora," Anna replied, her voice hollow. "I needed time to think." Mikhail sat across from his wife, taking her hands in his. They were cold despite the tea she'd been holding. "Something happened," he stated, rather than asked. Anna nodded, finally meeting his eyes. "I was mending her winter dress, the blue one with the embroidered flowers. I noticed it wasn't worn at all. Not a single thread loose, no fading, no sign of use. Yet she has worn it every Sunday for 3 years. Children are careful with their best clothes," Mikhail suggested. though uncertainty tinged his voice. No, Misha, I watched her today. She cut her finger while helping me peel potatoes. A deep cut that should have bled considerably. Anna's voice dropped to a whisper. The wound closed before my eyes. Within minutes, there was no trace it had ever existed. Mikhail frowned, the lines in his weathered face deepening. You must have been mistaken. Perhaps the cut wasn't as deep as you thought. I know what I saw, Anna insisted, pulling her hands away from his. And it's not the first time. Last autumn, when she fell from the apple tree and scraped her knees badly. Remember how quickly she healed? No scars? Nothing. And have you noticed she never gets sick? Not once. Not even when half the village was bedridden with influenza last winter. Mikhail stood abruptly, pacing the small kitchen. These are blessings, not causes for concern. Our daughter is healthy, resilient. Why do you speak as if these are bad things? Because they are not natural, Anna hissed, then immediately crossed herself. Forgive me, but you know it's true. Children change. They grow. They bear the marks of their experiences. Katcha does not. That night, after Katcha had been collected from Babiora and put to bed, Mikhail crept into her room. Moonlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating her sleeping form. Her face in repose was that of an angel, peaceful, perfect, unchanged since the day she had turned 7. He studied her, small hands folded atop the blanket, trying to find the cut Anna had mentioned. Nothing marred the pale skin. Mikhail returned to the bedroom he shared with Anna, finding his wife still awake, staring at the ceiling. We will take her to Moscow, he decided. There are better doctors there, modern science. They will explain what is happening. The party officials barely allow villagers to travel to the district center, let alone Moscow, Anna replied. And we cannot afford such a journey. I will find a way, Mikhail insisted. I'll speak to Comrade Linov tomorrow. His brother works for the railway. Perhaps he can help. But as February gave way to March and winter's grip began to loosen, it became clear that arranging travel to Moscow would be nearly impossible. The Soviet authorities were suspicious of peasants wanting to leave their assigned regions, especially during the crucial planting season. Comrade Linov, the local party representative, had laughed at Mikhail's request. Moscow. What business does a lumberman have in Moscow? The capital is for important party business, not for peasants with sick children. Use the district hospital, like everyone else. Meanwhile, strange occurrences around Katya increased. The family's cat, previously affectionate toward everyone, began to hiss and arch its back whenever the girl entered a room. The milk in their cellar curdled overnight after Katya had been sent to fetch some. Amira cracked when she gazed into it too long. Small incidents easily explained away individually, but collectively they created an atmosphere of unease that permeated the Vulov household. By April, the villagers had begun to notice as well. When Katya attended school, a one-room affair where children of all ages were taught basic literacy and Soviet principles by a young teacher from Leningrad. The other students maintained a careful distance, not because of cruelty, but instinct, like animals sensing a predator in their midst. They gave her a wide berth without being able to articulate why. The teacher, Comrade Sarakina, called on Anna one afternoon as classes ended. Your daughter is exceptionally bright, she said, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses. Her essays are beyond what I would expect from a child her age, but I'm concerned about her social development. The other children, they don't include her in their games. She's always been different, Anna replied carefully, quieter, more thoughtful than most. It's more than that, Sarakina insisted. Yesterday, during our science lesson on human biology, I was explaining how children grow and develop. Katcha raised her hand and stated quite firmly that not everyone needs to grow, that some people are meant to stay the same forever. The teacher lowered her voice. When I corrected her, explaining that all living things must change and eventually die, she smiled in a way that made my blood run cold. Not everyone, she repeated. That night, Anna confronted Katya as she sat by the window, watching the stars emerge in the twilight sky. Your teacher spoke to me today, she began, sitting beside her daughter on the wooden bench. She says you've been saying strange things in class. Katya turned to her mother, her gray eyes reflecting the first evening star. I only told the truth. What truth could you? Anna asked, using the affectionate diminutive, though it had been months since she'd felt comfortable doing so. That I don't need to grow like the others, Katya replied matter-of-factly. I'm different. Everyone grows, my dear. It's the way of all living things. Katya shook her head, a small smile playing on her lips. Not me. I decided not to. A chill ran down Anna's spine. What do you mean you decided? The night of my 7th birthday, I was looking at the stars, just like now. I wished I could stay this way forever. Young, perfect, loved, and something in the darkness listened. Katya's voice took on a dreamy quality. It whispered that I could stop time for myself, if I truly wanted to. So I said yes. Anna fought to keep her expression neutral, though fear clawed at her throat. What whispered to you, Katya? The girl shrugged. I don't know its name. It doesn't need one. It's very old, from before names existed. She turned back to the window. It visits me sometimes in my dreams. It shows me things. What kinds of things? Anna asked, her mouth dry. The past, the future, places far away. Katya's reflection in the darkened glass seemed older somehow, her childish features momentarily sharpening into something ancient. It shows me what people are beneath their skin. Anna stood abruptly. It's time for bed. School tomorrow. As she tucked Katya in, performing the familiar ritual that now felt like play acting, Anna noticed a small leather pouch hanging from a cord around her daughter's neck, something she'd never seen before. What's this? She asked, reaching for it. Katya's hand shot up with startling speed, closing around Anna's wrist with unexpected strength. Don't touch it. It's mine. Anna pulled her hand back, shocked by both the grip and the fierce possessiveness in her daughter's usually placid voice. Where did you get it? It was a gift, Katya replied, her tone once again childlike. For protection. From whom? My friend? Katya yawned, her eyelids drooping. The one who whispers. It keeps me safe. After Katya had fallen asleep, Anna fled to the kitchen, her hands shaking so badly she could barely light the oil lamp. Mikhail found her there an hour later, returned from his evening meeting at the village Soviet, where the men gathered to discuss lumber quotas and repeat party slogans with varying degrees of conviction. What's happened? He asked, alarmed by his wife's pallor. Anna recounted her conversation with Katya, each word seemingly dragged from her against her will. When she mentioned the pouch, Mikhail's expression darkened. I'll look at it while she sleeps, he decided. If it's something dangerous, I'll destroy it. And if it's something else? Anna asked, unable to articulate the nature of her fears. Mikhail had no answer. That night, as Katya slept deeply, Mikhail crept into her room. The leather pouch rested against her chest, rising and falling with her breathing. With careful fingers, he untied the cord, sliding the pouch free. It was warm to the touch, warmer than could be explained by body heat alone. He retreated to the kitchen where Anna waited anxiously. Together, they opened the small pouch, tipping its contents onto the table. A small object fell out, a figure carved from what appeared to be bone, yellowed with age. It depicted a child with an oversized head and elongated limbs, features distorted in a way that was subtly wrong, grotesque without being obviously monstrous. Around the figure's neck, mirroring the pouch itself, was a tiny carved replica of a similar amulet. This is not a child's toy, Mikhail whispered, poking the figure with a knife point rather than touching it directly. Where would she get such a thing? She said it was from her friend who whispers, Anna replied, making the sign of the cross. Misha, I'm afraid. It's probably something one of the village children gave her, Michal reasoned, though his voice lacked conviction. Some old trinket found in an attic, nothing more. Then why did she guard it so fiercely? Why keep it secret? Anna picked up the knife, pointing it at the figure. We should destroy it. Mikhail nodded, taking the knife from her. He pressed the blade against the figure, intending to split it in two, but as the metal touched the yellowed material, a high-pitched sound emanated from the carving, not loud, but penetrating, like the distant scream of someone falling from a great height. Both adults flinched back. From Katcha's room came a sudden thump, followed by the sound of small feet on the wooden floor. She's awake, Anna gasped, hastily scooping the figure back into its pouch. But before they could hide the evidence of their investigation, Katcha appeared in the doorway. She wore her nightgown, her wheat-colored hair hanging loose around her shoulders. In the dim lamplight, her eyes appeared entirely black, the gray irises swallowed by dilated pupils. "That's mine," she said, her voice oddly flat. "You had no right to take it, Kudisha," Mikhail began, rising from his chair. "We were concerned. Give it back." The shout that erupted from the child was nothing like her normal voice, deep, layered with harmonics that made the oil lamp flicker and the windows vibrate in their frames. Anna gasped, dropping the pouch on the table. Katcha darted forward, snatching it up and clutching it to her chest. As her fingers closed around the leather, her posture changed. The rigid tension leaving her small body, her eyes gradually returning to normal. "It protects me," she said, now sounding like herself again. "You don't understand." "Protects you from what, Katya?" Mikhail asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "From time," she replied simply. "From growing old and ugly, and dying like everyone else." She looked between her parents, a sudden sadness crossing her features. "Like you will." Anna stifled a sob behind her hand. Mikhail knelt before his daughter, forcing himself to meet her gaze directly. "Katcha, this isn't right. Whatever this thing is, whatever arrangement you think you've made, it can't be good. Please let us help you." For a moment, something like doubt flickered in Katya's eyes, a glimpse of the normal child she had once been. Then her expression hardened, taking on a maturity that seemed grotesque on her 7-year-old features. "You can't help me," she stated. "No one can. This is what I am now." She turned, walking back to her bedroom with the measured steps of someone much older. "Don't touch my things again." After that night, a suffocating tension descended upon the Vulov household. Katcha continued her routine, attending school, helping with chores, behaving in most ways like an ordinary child. But the moments of wrongness increased. Mikhail and Anna would catch her staring at them while they slept. Objects would move between rooms, with no explanation. The pouch never left her neck. Most disturbing were the changes in Katya's knowledge and abilities. She began speaking languages. She had never been taught fragments of German, Latin phrases, words in tongues neither parent recognized. Her school essays contained references to historical events and scientific concepts far beyond the rural Soviet curriculum. When asked how she knew these things, she would only smile and say, "My friend shows me." By May, Anna had taken to sleeping with a small icon of the Virgin Mary hidden beneath her pillow, a dangerous possession in the militantly atheist Soviet Union. Though he had publicly embraced communist ideology as required, began visiting the old church on the edge of the forest, abandoned since the revolution, but still standing there among the dusty pews and faded paintings of saints. He would sit in silence, searching for answers in a faith he had been forced to discard. It was during one such visit that he encountered Father Kir, a priest who had supposedly fled to Ukraine years ago when the Bolsheviks began executing clergymen. The elderly man emerged from the shadows of the altar, his black cassock dusty, his beard streaked with gray. "I wondered when one of you would come seeking help," the priest said, sitting beside Mikhail on the worn wooden pew. "The village speaks of your daughter." Mikhail stiffened. "What do they say?" "That she doesn't age." that animals fear her, that strange lights have been seen around your home at night. Father Kiril's roomy eyes fixed on Mikhail's face. These are not new stories, Mikhail Vulov. They have been told before, in different times, different places. What are you saying? That your daughter is not the first child to make a bargain with forces beyond our understanding. The priest pulled a small leather-bound book from within his cassock. In the 17th century, a girl in a village near Arkhangelsk stopped aging at the age of 9. In 1803, a boy in Siberia remained an infant for 60 years before vanishing during a winter storm. In 1889, twins in Poland maintained the appearance of 5-year-olds well into their 20s until their appearance. The priest trailed off, turning pages in his book, until their parents. What? Mikhail demanded. Father Kiril closed the book. They did what they believed necessary to free their children's souls. The implication hung in the air between them, unspoken but unmistakable. I would never harm my daughter, Mikhail said firmly, standing up. Whatever is happening, we will find another way. There may not be another way, the priest replied. What inhabits your daughter now, what she invited in it, will not leave willingly. With each passing day, less of your true child remains. You're wrong, Mikhail insisted. Katcha is still there. I see her sometimes behind her, eyes afraid, confused. Then that is both blessing and curse, Father Kiril said, also rising. A blessing that some spark of her true self remains to be saved. A curse because she is aware of what is happening to her. The priest pressed the small book into Mikhail's hands. Read this. It contains accounts of similar cases throughout history and the methods used to address them. Some successful, others, he crossed himself, less so. Mikhail tucked the book inside his coat. If Comrade Linov discovers I've been speaking with a priest, I was never here, Father Kiril said with a tired smile. A ghost telling tales of other ghosts. That's all. When Mikhail returned home, he found Anna sitting at the kitchen table with Baba Yora, the old midwife who had delivered Katcha a decade earlier. Both women fell silent as he entered, exchanging glances laden with unspoken meaning. Where is Katcha? He asked immediately. At the river with the other children, Anna replied. Comrade Sarakina is teaching them to swim. Mikhail doubted his daughter was actually participating. More likely she was sitting on the bank, watching with those two knowing eyes while maintaining her careful distance. Baba Yora and I have been talking, Anna continued, her voice measured. About Katcha. The old woman fixed Mikhail with a penetrating stare from beneath her heavy brows. I should have recognized the signs when she was born, she said, her hands twisted like gnarled roots in her lap. Silent birth, eyes too aware. Born when the veil between worlds was thinnest. Under normal circumstances, Mikhail would have dismissed such talk as superstition, dangerous superstition in Soviet Russia, where scientific materialism was the only acceptable worldview. But Normal had fled their lives months ago. What does it mean? He asked, sinking into a chair. She carries an old one within her, Baba Yora stated flatly. A spirit from the time before, when the forests were vast and humans few. They envy our warm blood, our ability to change and grow, to live fully and die completely. How could such a thing happen to a child? Mikhail demanded. Katcha was innocent. Good. The innocent are most vulnerable, the old woman replied. Their souls not yet fully anchored to this world. And you're Katcha born between years, between seasons, between night and day. She was more vulnerable than most. A door left ajar, and this old one, Anna interjected. It offered her something. Eternal childhood, Baba Yora nodded, a common lure. Children fear growing up, taking on responsibilities, eventually facing death. The old ones know this fear and exploit it. She leaned forward, lowering her voice, though no one else was present. But the bargain is false. The child does not remain a child, not truly. The body may stay unchanged, but the mind accumulates years, decades, eventually centuries of knowledge and experience, trapped in a child's form, but ancient within, a torment of its own kind. What can we do? Mikhail asked, thinking of the priest's book hidden in the woodshed where he'd concealed it upon returning home. There are methods, Baba Yara said cautiously. Rituals from the old days, before the church, before the party. But they carry risks, great risk for Katya, for all involved. The old woman stood, bones creaking. I will gather what is needed, 3 nights from now, when the moon is dark. Be ready. After she had gone, Mikhail told Anna about his encounter with Father Kyrell. She showed no surprise at the priest's continued presence in the region. The old ways persist, she said simply. Church, or folk magic, both continue in secret. The party men may rule by day, but they don't venture into the forests at night. They don't hear what whispers between the trees. That evening, when Katcha returned from the river, her clothes were perfectly dry, her hair unruffled by the wind that had blown all day. She moved through the house like a silent ghost, observing her parents with careful detachment. During dinner, she spoke little, pushing food around her plate without eating. Aren't you hungry, Kutasha? Anna asked, forcing normality into her voice. I don't need food anymore, Katcha replied matter-of-fact. My friend provides what I require. Mikhail and Anna exchanged glances across the table. Everyone needs food to live, Mikhail said carefully. It's how bodies work. Katya tilted her head, studying her father with clinical interest. Your body, perhaps. Mine is different now. She pushed her plate away. May I be excused? I want to read before bed. After she had gone, Mikhail retrieved the priest's book from its hiding place in the woodshed. He and Anna bent over it at the kitchen table, reading by lamplight, their shadows stretching enormous against the walls. The book contained accounts dating back centuries, children who stopped aging, who developed strange abilities, who became gradually alienated from humanity. The descriptions matched Katcha's transformation with disturbing precision. Some cases ended with the child simply disappearing, presumably having fully transformed into whatever entity had possessed them. Others ended more tragically, with desperate families or frightened communities taking drastic action. Between these accounts were descriptions of rituals, prayers, methods of exorcism from various traditions, Christian rites, alongside older pagan practices, folk remedies next, to elaborate ceremonial instructions. These can't all work, Anna whispered, tracing a finger over a particularly complex diagram. They contradict each other. Perhaps what matters is belief, Mikhail suggested. Faith that something will work. And if nothing does, Anna's voice broke. What then? Mikhail had no answer. 3 nights later, as promised, Baba Yora arrived at the Vulov home after midnight. With her came 2 other village elders, Stepan Orlov, a hunter whose knowledge of the forest was unmatched, and Galina Petrova, a woman known for her ability to find lost things and lost people. Where is the child? Baba Yora asked without preamble. Sleeping, Anna replied, glancing nervously toward Katcha's closed bedroom door. Are you certain? Galina asked, her milky eyes blind since birth, but supposedly seeing in other ways, turning toward the door. Mikhail nodded. I checked 10 minutes ago. She takes longer to fall asleep now, but when she does, she sleeps deeply. Until she doesn't, Stepan muttered, removing his worn fur hat to reveal a balding head. We should hurry, Baba Yora said. The group moved silently through the kitchen to Katcha's bedroom door. Baba Yora produced a small bottle of clear liquid from her shawl, uncorking it and sprinkling the contents on the threshold. To keep what's inside from coming out, she explained in a whisper. Stepan placed a small bundle of dried herbs above the doorframe, and this to keep what's outside safe. Galina said nothing, her blind eyes fixed unseeing on the wooden panels, her lips moving in silent recitation of words known only to her. Mikhail eased the door open. The room beyond was dark, illuminated only by thin moonlight filtering through the curtains. Katya lay in her small bed, chest rising and falling steadily, the leather pouch visible against her nightgown. The adults entered silently, forming a loose circle around the bed. Baba Yara nodded to Mikhail, who gently placed his hands on Katya's shoulders, ready to restrain her if necessary. Anna stood by with a small glass of liquid, a sedative tea Baba Yara had prepared should they need to keep Katya calm. The old midwife began to speak, her voice barely above a whisper, in a language Mikhail didn't recognize, older than Russian. Possibly older than any tongue still spoken in the modern world. Stepan joined in, his deep bass harmonizing with her cracked soprano. Galina swayed slightly, adding her own melodic line to the strange chorus, as they chanted. Baba Yara reached for the leather pouch around Katya's neck. The moment her fingers touched the cord, the girl's eyes snapped open. They were entirely black, no white, no iris, like holes punched in reality. "I warned you," came the voice from Katya's mouth, the layered harmonic voice they had heard once before. But stronger now, more confident. "She is mine now." Mikhail tightened his grip on his daughter's shoulders as she began to thrash. Strength far beyond what her small frame should possess, causing the bed to creak and shudder. "Hold her," Baba Yara commanded, abandoning her chant to grab at the pouch again. Katya's back arched impossibly, her spine bending at an angle that should have broken it. A high-pitched keening emanated, not from her mouth, which was stretched in a silent scream, but from somewhere deeper, as if the sound originated from inside her chest cavity. "The tea," Baba Yara shouted to Anna, who rushed forward with the glass. As she approached, an invisible force struck her, sending the glass flying against the wall where it shattered, the liquid hissing as it hit the wooden surface. "The pouch," Galina cried, her blind eyes wide with terror. "It must be removed." Stepan lunged forward, hunting knife in hand, slashing at the cord around Katya's neck. The leather parted, the pouch falling onto the blanket. Instantly, Katya went rigid, then limp. The blackness receded from her eyes, revealing normal gray irises, wide with confusion and fear. "Mama," she whispered, her voice her own again. "Papa, what's happening?" "It's all right, Kudisha," Mikhail soothed, his grip gentle, but not releasing. "We're trying to help you." Baba Yara snatched up the pouch, holding it away from the bed. "Step on the fire?" The hunter nodded, taking the pouch and retreating from the room toward the kitchen stove, which had been stoked to full heat in preparation. "No," Katya suddenly screamed, struggling against her father's hands. "Don't. You don't understand. It will be angry." "What will be angry, child?" Galina asked, moving closer to the bed, her blind eyes somehow finding and holding Katya's gaze. "The one who whispers. The one who keeps me safe." Tears streamed down Katya's face. "It promised I would never have to grow old, never get sick, never die. It said it would protect me, forever." "And what did it ask in return?" Galina pressed. Katya's struggles subsided, her expression becoming uncertain. Just a place to stay inside me. It said we would share." "And have you been sharing truly?" Galina's voice was gentle. "Or has it been taking more and more of you, leaving less of Katya behind?" The girl's face crumpled. I don't know anymore. Sometimes I can't remember who I am. Sometimes I watch myself doing things, saying things, but it's not me deciding." From the kitchen came the sound of the stove door clanging open, followed by Stepan's voice raised in a prayer or incantation, his words indistinct, but the cadence unmistakable. Katya stiffened again, her eyes widening in terror. "No, stop him. If he destroys it," her words cut off, as her body convulsed, back arching again at that impossible angle. From her open mouth emerged, not a scream but a plume of dark smoke, writhing like a living thing as it coalesced above the bed. The temperature in the room plummeted, frost crystallizing on the windows despite the May warmth outside. The smoke shape twisted, forming something vaguely humanoid but wrong: limbs too long, head misshapen, features suggested rather than defined. "Old one, be gone," Baba Yora commanded, flinging a handful of some powder into the apparition. You have no claim here. The smoke shape shuddered, emitting that same high-pitched keening they had heard before. It lunged toward Katya, who lay limp in her father's grasp, eyes rolled back, showing only whites. Galina stepped between them, arms outstretched. By earth that bears us, by air we breathe, by water that flows in our veins, by fire that warms our hearts. You are denied this child. The smoke recoiled, then surged forward again with greater force, enveloping Galina completely. The blind woman screamed, once a sound of pure agony, before crumpling to the floor. From the kitchen came a cry of triumph from Stepan, followed by a roaring sound as something caught fire with unusual intensity. The smoke shape above the bed contorted violently, stretching toward the door as if being pulled. A soundless howl seemed to emanate from it, felt rather than heard, vibrating in the bones of everyone present. Then, with a final convulsion, it dissipated, not vanishing, but rather seeming to tear apart, fragments dissolving into the air like mist under strong sunlight. Silence fell, broken only by ragged breathing and the soft crackle of the fire in the kitchen. Katcha lay unconscious, her face peaceful for the first time in months. Galina remained on the floor, Baba Yora kneeling beside her, checking for signs of life. Is it gone? Anna asked, her voice barely audible. For now, Baba Yora replied without looking up. The anchor is destroyed. Its hold is broken, but such things don't truly die. They retreat, wait for new doorways. Will it come back for Katcha? Mikhail asked, still cradling his daughter's limp form. Perhaps, perhaps not. The old woman sighed heavily. These old ones are patient. They think in centuries, not moments. But they also hold grudges. Stepan returned from the kitchen, his face ashen. It fought the fire. The flames turned green, then black. The bone figure screamed a sound no object should make. He crossed himself. A gesture forbidden by Soviet doctrine but ingrained by centuries of tradition. It's ash now. Nothing but ash. Baba Yora looked up from Galina's still form, her expression grave. We've paid a price tonight. Galina has crossed over. The old one took her instead of the child. Mikhail and Anna bowed their heads in grief and gratitude for the sacrifice. Stepan muttered a prayer while Baba Yora closed Galina's sightless eyes with gentle fingers. What do we do now? Anna asked, moving to sit on the bed beside her daughter, stroking the wheat-colored hair from her forehead. You leave, Baba Yora said firmly. Tonight, if possible. Tomorrow at the latest. Go far from this place. Change your names. Never speak of what happened here. The authorities won't simply let us leave, Mikhail protested. We need permits, papers. I have connections, Stepan said quietly. People who move between worlds, the Soviet world and the older one beneath it. For a price, they can help you disappear. We have little money, Anna began. Not that kind of price, the hunter interrupted. A promise that you will watch over your daughter. That you will teach her to recognize the signs, should the old one or another like it come calling again. That you will pass this knowledge to her children and her children's children. Mikhail nodded solemnly. We promise. That night, as Baba Yora and Stepan prepared Galina's body for a secret burial in the forest, one that would never be recorded in Soviet registries, the Volovs packed what few possessions they could carry, clothes, some food, the family icon hidden inside a loaf of bread, Mikhail's tools wrapped in oilcloth. Katya remained unconscious until dawn, when she woke with a sharp gasp. Sitting upright in bed as if pulled by strings, Katusha Anna approached cautiously. How do you feel? The girl looked around confused, then down at her own hands as if seeing them for the first time. Empty, she whispered, hollow inside. But myself again. Mikhail knelt beside the bed. Do you remember what happened? Katcha nodded slowly. Some of it, like a dream that's fading. Her hand went to her throat, finding the pouch gone. It's really over. Yes, Mikhail assured her, though a flicker of doubt remained in his heart. We're leaving Kremenk today, going somewhere new, somewhere safe. Will it find me again? Katya asked, fear evident in her voice. Not if we're careful, Anna said, sitting beside her daughter and gathering her into an embrace. Not if we remember what happened and stay vigilant. As the first light of dawn brightened the eastern sky, the Vulova family slipped away from their home of many years. Stepan met them at the edge of the forest, leading them along hidden paths known only to hunters and those who lived on the margins of Soviet society. 3 days later they boarded a freight train bound for the east, hidden among crates of machinery destined for the new industrial cities being built in the Urals. Their papers procured through channels best left, unexamined, identified them as the Sokolov family, workers volunteering for the 5-year plan's ambitious projects. Over the following weeks, as they traveled further from Kremenk, a subtle change began in One morning, as they washed at a stream during a stop, Anna noticed a loose tooth in her daughter's mouth, the first sign of normal childhood development in years. "Mama, look," Katya exclaimed, wiggling the tooth with her tongue. "I'm growing again." Tears filled Anna's eyes as she embraced her daughter. Mikhail, watching from a few paces away, felt a knot of tension he'd carried for months finally begin to unravel. The Vulova family. Now the Sokolovs eventually settled in Magna, one of the massive industrial complexes being constructed as showcases of Soviet achievement. There, amid the chaos of a city being built from nothing, they blended in with thousands of other workers and their families. Katya grew normally from that point forward, shooting up several inches in the first year, losing baby teeth, gaining adult ones. By 1935, she had become a teenager, indistinguishable from her peers, except for a certain weariness in her eyes, a certain caution in forming friendships. But at night, sometimes Mikhail or Anna would find her staring out the window of their cramped apartment, watching the stars with an intensity that reminded them of darker times. On those occasions, one parent would gently lead her back to bed, reminding her of the promise they had all made, to remember, to stay vigilant, to recognize the whispers of ancient things that envied human life. And sometimes, when the night was particularly dark and the stars particularly bright, Katja would admit in whispers that she could still feel it out. They're searching, not just for her, but for any child with a door left ajar between worlds. "But I'm closing my door," she would say, her voice growing stronger with each passing year. "I'm locking it tight, and someday I'll teach others to do the same." In 1941, when Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union, Katja was 21, a young woman working as a nurse in the Magnitogorsk hospital, as the city transformed its industrial capacity to support the war effort. She volunteered for a medical unit, heading to the front lines. The night before her departure, she sat with her aging parents in their kitchen, drinking tea in silence, until Katya finally spoke. "It never stopped looking for me," she said quietly. "All these years, I've felt it searching, but it's grown weaker as I've grown stronger. Each day I age naturally, each change my body undergoes diminishes its claim on me." "You don't have to go to the front," Anna said, her once coiled hair now streaked with gray. "There's danger enough here. I'm not running from danger anymore," Katja replied, taking her mother's hand. "I'm running toward purpose. There will be children near the front, refugees, orphans, children made vulnerable by war and loss. The old ones will be drawn to them, offering false comfort, false promises. You'll recognize the signs," Mikhail stated with pride. "You'll close the doors before they can enter." Katja nodded. "That's my real war. Not against fascists, though I'll fight them too, but against what waits in the spaces between the patient hunters of innocence." When she left the next morning, Katja carried in her pack a small booknot, Father Kirill's tome, which had been left behind in their flight from Crimea, but one she had written herself over the years. In it, She had recorded everything she remembered about her experience, everything her parents had told her, everything she had learned through careful research in libraries and cautious conversations with the keepers of old knowledge who still existed in the shadows of Soviet society, a record, a warning, a guide for others who might face what she had faced. The war raged for 4 long years. Mikhail and Anna received occasional letters from their daughter, carefully worded to pass military censors, but containing coded phrases that assured them she was safe and continuing her secret work. In her last letter, dated April 1945, as Soviet forces closed in on Berlin, Katcha wrote, "I found 3 children last week, siblings orphaned near Dresden. The youngest, a boy of 6, was already wearing a pouch around his neck given to him by a friendly shadow. I recognized it immediately. When I burned it, something screamed in the distance beyond the artillery fire. The boy cried for a day and a night, then woke smiling, asking when breakfast would be served, his first interest in food in months. The nurses tell me, I am not alone in this work. I've discovered there are others." A French resistance fighter who specializes in finding children hidden during the Nazi occupation. A British RAF pilot who swears his plane is guided by something beyond instruments when searching for downed crews. A Polish woman who can tell with a touch whether a child is truly themselves or hosting. We have agreed to stay in contact after the war ends to form a network, to watch for signs and share knowledge. The old ones have fed well during this conflict. So many doors left ajar by trauma and loss. But we are closing them, one by one. I may not return to Magnitogorsk when this is over. My work will take me elsewhere. But know that the frightened child you saved in Kremenk has grown into someone who saves others. The chain remains unbroken. With endless love and gratitude, your Kutasha, Mikhail, and Anna Vulova, living out their final years as the Sokolovs never saw their daughter again. Whether she fell in the war's final battles or simply disappeared into her new purpose, they never knew with certainty. But sometimes in the decades that followed, they would hear stories. An American exchange teacher in Moscow who identified a troubled child as being between. A doctor in Leningrad renowned for treating children with mysterious ailments that defied medical explanation. A gride woman who appeared at sites of disasters where children had been orphaned or traumatized, and who always departed once she had identified and helped certain specific young ones. And occasionally, rarely, they would receive a package with no return address, containing a new page or 2 for the book they kept hidden beneath a floorboard in their bedroom. Additional knowledge, new methods, updated warnings about the old ones and their evolving tactics. The last such package arrived in 1963, shortly after Mikhail's death. Inside, Anna found a single sheet of paper containing just a few lines. The work continues. The network grows. Some doors will always be left ajar. That cannot be helped, but more are closed now than open. More children grow naturally than remain suspended. It is enough to know we fight, even if we cannot win completely. The girl who never aged now has gray in her hair and lines around her eyes, and she has never been more grateful for these signs of time's passage. It was signed with a single letter, K. In the decades since, the network Katcha helped establish has continued its quiet work identifying children at risk, recognizing the signs of ancient entities seeking entry to our world, closing doors left ajar by trauma, loss, or simple vulnerability. Their records, passed from hand to hand, guardian to guardian, contain accounts from across history and around the world. Children who stopped aging, parents who grew afraid of their own offspring, ancient things that whisper promises to, tempting to refuse, and always at the core of their knowledge. The story of a girl in 1930s Russia who made a bargain with darkness, whose parents fought to save her, and who grew up to save others. A reminder that the most terrifying monsters are not those that attack from without, but those that offer what we most desire, asking only for a small space within us in return. A reminder that true horror lies not in the grotesque or the violent, but in the subtle wrongness of a child who never ages, frozen in time, while everything around them changes, dies, and is forgotten. The whispers continue. The door still open. The network still watches. And somewhere, perhaps, a gride woman still works, simply old, now if natural laws apply to her. But perhaps sustained by other means, other bargains made with better entities than the one she escaped in her childhood, still closing doors, still saving children, still ensuring that the natural order, birth, growth, age, and eventual peaceful death remains the rightful path for human souls. For in that natural progression, terrible and beautiful as it is, lies our true humanity, our triumph over the ancient darkness that waits, patient and hungry, in the spaces between.